I'm Shay and welcome to 2016. So as you saw right before this, those were all the books that I read in 2015. I'm pretty proud of myself because I've never actually kept track of how many books that I've read over the course of a year before, so I was pleasantly surprised that I managed to read 63 books. I had a Goodreads goal initially of 75 books, but over the course of the year I actually lowered that by 5 until finally I got down to 60. And so I didn't meet my original goal, but I did meet the one that I ended up setting for myself. So I'm proud of myself. I feel like I did accomplish something. I think that 60 books or 63 books in a year is really good. That's a little over 5 a month, so I mean that's like more than 1 week, so I think that's pretty good, right? Yeah, I think so. So 2015 was a year full of great reads, and so because of that, I picked my top 12 books for the year, one per month, so I'm going to get into that. So the best book of the month for January is actually Ensnared by A.G. Howard. This is the final book in the Splintered trilogy, and oh my gosh, it was one of the most satisfying reads that I have had the entire year. The ending was just amazing, and the characters were so well written, the whole story was so well written. This is seriously one of my favorite trilogies ever, and I know I talk about this series a lot, and I know that it's not a super duper well known series, but this is me telling you that you need to read it right now. Also, A.G. Howard came out with a bind-up of novellas that just came out last month or something like that. It's called Untamed, and I can put the link below, and it just made me so happy because I didn't have to say goodbye just yet to my favorite characters and my favorite place, and I haven't read it yet. Maybe if I can just put it off long enough, then I'll be able to not have to say goodbye to everybody just yet. But anyway, this is my January pick, and it was amazing. My favorite for February was none other than Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I know so many people have loved this book, and it has been their favorite of whatever year that they read it in. And I gotta say, this one is definitely up there in my top 5 books that I read this last year. It was just so good. I did a review on it back in February. I can link that down below. Along with the review I did of Ensnared, I'll link that down below too. Anyway, but this book was just so good. I feel like anybody could read and like this book because it's not a normal genre that I would pick up. It's not even the premise isn't something that I would normally read, but there was just so many good reviews on it, and there was just so many people raving about it that I just had to read it, and I'm so glad that I did because, like I said, this is one of my favorite books now of the year, and I am so excited for the movie that may possibly come out sometime soonish, and yeah, so that's cool. So my pick for March is The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Lesley Walton, and this book was unlike anything I've ever read before. It was just very poetic, and the idea behind it was so different from anything I'd ever read before, and the writing was just so cool that it was just a very memorable read, and so I had to make this my pick for March. In April, for my TBR Jar Challenge, I was given the task of reading a nonfiction book, which I'm not normally into. I don't really like nonfiction that much. It's just kind of boring to me. But luckily, I had just picked up On Writing by Stephen King, and this ended up being my favorite book of April. This one, I annotated it like crazy. There's just highlights and notes and all kinds of stuff that I did in this one because this book was so good and there was so much to take away from it. I feel like even if you're not a writer, you can enjoy this book because it talks about kind of his journey becoming a writer, just from the time he was little up until when this book was published, which it looks like it was published in 2000. His life is so interesting, and his way of coming up with his stories is so interesting that, like I said, even if I wasn't a writer, this book still would have been really interesting. So yeah, my pick for April, I definitely encourage and suggest you go read it. So my pick for May is The Unbound by Victoria Schwab. This is actually the second book in the Archived trilogy series. I don't know, she hasn't written the third book yet, which she needs to right now. But anyway, this book was so good. Just like the first one, Victoria Schwab has never let me down. Of course, I only read 2 of her books, but of those 2 books, I have not been let down. And she has another book coming out actually she has 4 books coming out this year. She's on a roll. But there's one that I'm really excited about, which I will talk about in a later video. But right now I'm talking about this one, and it is so pretty, and it is so soft, always with the soft book covers. I hope she continues to use such soft book covers, because I will forever be petting them, and I will never grow tired of it. My pick for June was another amazing book by an author I had never read before, but was somebody who everybody else seems to have read, and that was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and I absolutely adored this book. It was so cute, and it was just really like an easy read, I guess you could say, because there are some books where you like have to be like super duper focused because there's so much happening and it's so like epic, and there's this whole world that you have to like remember and figure out. But this one was just like one of those books where you could just kind of take your time reading it, or you didn't really have to be like super duper invested in it to be able to understand what was going on. And that was just something that I really needed at this point in my year. But it was just, I loved it. I loved the fact that the main girl writes fan fiction. And so even though I don't write fan fiction, I could still relate to her because she was a writer. And it was just really good, and the romance in it was so cute. And this book actually made me read one of her other books, Eleanor and Park. And that one was good too, although this one is still just like my favorite of hers that she has written. It was so good. So good. Thank you, Rainbow Rowell, for writing this book. I actually couldn't pick a book for July. I don't even think I read any books in July, or I read like one and it wasn't that good. So I actually have 2 picks for August. I'm glad that I have 2 picks for August because I could not pick between the 2 that I ended up choosing anyway. So my first pick for August is Undercurrent by Paul Blackwell, and this book was a serious, just like mind-blowing read because it was so different than anything that I've read before. It was really dark and like depressing, which I absolutely love those kinds of books because they just like, they get you to think and they just put you in this mood that's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm just weird, but I just absolutely love this book. This is another one that I've never heard other people talk about. I actually found this book because of an ad on Goodreads, so good job Goodreads. Those ads are actually getting to some people, they're not just annoying for everybody. So this is another one that I would definitely recommend if you like darker, depressing books. But this one was another really quick read because it was really short and it's just a standalone. There's no sequels or anything coming out that I know of. I don't think there would be. It ended on like a really good, like solid note. So I think this is just going to be its own thing, but it's a good book. That is why it was one of my August picks. So my second August book is the one and only Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and it was, this was like the beginning of one of the most amazing love stories ever, and that is the love story between me and this series, because these books are like so good. And I am not a high fantasy person, but these books made me a high fantasy person. Maybe they might not have even made me a high fantasy person, they just made me love this series in particular. I don't know if I could actually like pick up like Lord of the Rings and get into it or whatever, but this is gold. This whole series is freaking amazing, and that is why this was my topic for August, although I do regret waiting until August to read this book. It has been out for so long. It has been on my shelf for so long, and it was just staring at me, and it was just saying, read me, Shannon. Please, just pick me up and read me. You will love me. And for some reason, I just couldn't hear it. And finally, my ears became attuned to the small, quiet voice that was the voice of Throne of Glass, and it opened my heart and got inside it. And that is where it will stay forever and always. So for September, following August, of course I have to choose the second book in the Throne of Glass series, Crown of Midnight. And again, this is just so amazing. I don't know how many times or how much I can really express my love for this series and not just make you want to throw up, if you haven't already. This one was actually my favorite. I think this is actually my favorite out of the entire series. There's one particular scene in this book that I just absolutely loved, and it's like the best thing ever, and I think I read it like 3 times, and I was just like, every single time when I would finish reading that scene, I was just like, yeah, go Selena, and I was so excited, and now I'm a cheerleader, so go read this book. But read the first one first, or this one won't make sense, so. So in October, I read another book that has been seriously sitting on my shelf for like 2 years now, and that was Some Quiet Place by Kelsey Sutton. This book was actually like super good. Like, I loved it. I kind of wish that it wasn't a standalone. I mean, okay, it does have a companion novel, but it's not like a continuation of this story. It's like a whole nother story. But this book was just so good. It's about a girl who, she doesn't feel emotions, but she sees them like in human form. She has like this weird love-hate, like romantic relationship with fear, and it's just like really interesting. And you kind of, I love like magic realism kind of books where it's just like set, you know, in our world, but there's just something so like weird to it that just makes it so different and so interesting and captivating. And that was what happened with this book, was that it was just so interesting because of this weird deal where this girl could see emotions as people, and it was, I don't know, it was just really cool. So this is, like I said, another one that I've never really heard anything about. I can't remember why I got this one. It wasn't a Goodreads ad, I don't know what it was, but I'm really glad that I did get it because it is so good. And then I didn't have any books picked out for November. This was another thing where I don't think I actually read anything in November. I was kind of busy having a kid, but I did manage to pick 2 for December. I'm glad I got to pick 2 because I wouldn't have been able to choose between the 2 of them. And those 2 picks of December are Queen of Shadows and The Assassin's Blade, both by Sarah J. Maas, both in the absolutely amazing Throne of Glass series. Again, I would encourage you to pick these up. Obviously, like I said, read the rest of the series first, or these won't make any sense. But yeah, I was so glad to finally read Queen of Shadows, but it's one of those things where I read it way too fast, and now I have to wait like a whole year before the next one comes out. So that's really sad. So those were my top 12 picks for the year of 2015. I am so excited to pick the 12 for this year, and I'm sure that they're all going to be just as amazing, especially the one in September, because that is when the 5th book in the Throne of Glass series comes out, and so that's going to be really fun to read that one. So not only was 2015 a good reading year for me, it was a great buying year for me. I ended up buying 120 physical books and 19 ebooks. As you can tell, I'm not a huge ebook person, but 120 books. That is like, I have more than doubled my book collection, and it's kind of ridiculous. Of course, that being said, I did buy like 40 something books in my first month. So, and I think it's kind of your guys' fault because I did not read or buy so many books before I started BookTube. So actually I want to thank you for that. Thank you for getting me so many more books than I had before, because I definitely need them. I didn't need them, but I have them, and I'm so happy that I have them. So, my goals for 2016. I already set my Goodreads reading challenge goal, and I kind of lowballed it a little bit just so that it wouldn't be so crazy this year, but I pledged to read 50 books this year, which comes to like 4 a month. Almost a little over 4 a month. I think that's doable, especially since I'm doing the book club now with my sister and my mom. So that's at least 1 book a month. So I only need to figure out 4 others for the most months, or 3 others, or whatever, for most months. And then my TBR jar challenge didn't quite work out last year. I was able to do it for a little while, like maybe half the year, but then after a while things got really busy. And I also just didn't like the idea of not really being able to choose every book that I wanted to read for that month. So I think I'm going to nix the TBR jar challenge for this year, and I might even just like do small TBR videos, because just throughout the month I want to be able to choose what books I'm going to read, and at the beginning of the month I may not know what books I want to read. It'll just, I think, depend on my mood or what I just read, or if I liked a book or not, if I want to continue reading it. So I feel like I'm not going to be doing so many TBR videos, but I will definitely be doing wrap-up videos at the end of every month so that I can tell you about the books that I did read. Alright, so that is it for my 2015 wrap-up / 2016 goals video. I hope that you liked it. I hope that you achieved all the goals that you wanted to achieve in 2015, and I hope that you make some goals for yourself in 2016 so you can feel so accomplished at the end of the year. I know that you can do it. Let's do it together. Anyway, like I said, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you have a great night, and I will see you next time with another video. So keep going, keep reading, keep on keeping on. Bye.